President Biden trying to rally those Democratic voters around the issue of abortion. As we just saw a few minutes ago, he just exited the stage there at this event at the Howard Theater in Washington, D.C. But again, this speech really comes at a time where inflation is historic, crime out of control across the nation, even in the suburbs, and problems are a direct result of his and his party's policies.
In an op-ed for the Washington Times, David Bossie says, quote, the midterms will be a referendum on Biden's record. He goes on to say, quote, the 2022 midterms are about the wrong track America is on under total Democratic control. A Joe Biden-inspired malaise has set in around us. High inflation, high crime, high gas prices, open borders, and more pessimism and division among our citizens than ever. Let's welcome in now David Bossie. He is the president of Citizens United and a former deputy campaign manager for President Trump in 2016. David, great to have you back with us.
Hey, David.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back.
You know, we were talking about the strategic petroleum reserves in the last hour, and I was looking at the graph, David, that showed when that actually started. And the one thing you could say Jimmy Carter did right was starting to build that strategic petroleum reserve. And, you know, when it comes to Joe Biden, what is he doing right? And what will voters actually reward him? You know, we heard about all these accomplishments that they've been talking about, but, you know, today he's talking about restoring Roe, not about those accomplishments.
Yeah, 21 days. 3 weeks from today is Election Day, and Joe Biden isn't on the campaign trail around the country trying to buck up liberal, and moderate candidates trying to win House and Senate seats. He's in Washington, D.C., holding a rally on arguably the 6th or 7th most important issue on voters' minds today, which is the Dobbs decision. And I just got to tell you, he is not wanted. He is not welcome on the campaign trail. He is a anchor to their success, and they know it. That's why they don't have him out there. That's why he had to go to Oregon and California and Colorado, not some of these battleground states like Michigan and Pennsylvania and Georgia.
They say those for President Obama. That's what he's done.
Yeah. And finally,
right, exactly.
Well, I mean, we saw the press is starting to, ask some tough questions. Of course, very rarely can our James Rosen get a question at the podium. But, you had Joe Biden the other day holding the ice cream. That's the photo up there. Why they still send him to ice cream places is astonishing to me. But saying the economy is red hot there. I mean, it's flat out lies, David. I guess they think that Americans are stupid, or that people just won't, they'll just stay with the Democratic line?
Bianca, that's a very, very important point that the American people have to understand. We have a crime crisis, an open border crisis, a fentanyl crisis, an inflation crisis, gas crisis, food crisis. And every one of these crises are man-made. And the man's name is Joe Biden. That's what the American people are going to be thinking when they're voting in 3 weeks from today. Some people are already voting. It is a bad trend. Look, as a sports analogy, you don't win the Super Bowl in October. You don't win the World Series over the summer. You have to peak at the right time. Democrats celebrated that they were peaking in August, but people aren't voting in August. And so the economy has come home to roost. And the American people are going to throw the bums out in 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's like baseball. You got the Padres and you got the Phillies. They are peaking at the right time, beating teams that were better in the regular season than they were. And I just want to go back to the kind of guidance we got today on Joe Biden's reverse Roe speech. It says, and this is from the White House, today President Biden will say in remarks scheduled for midday that if Democrats expand their ranks in the midterm elections, the first bill he will send to the next Congress would be to enshrine Roe v. Wade. I mean, they have both houses of Congress now and the presidency. Why not do it now? I mean, because they can't, and that's the answer. They don't have the mandate to do it, and they're not going to get it in the midterms, David.
John, that's exactly right. They've had 2 years to try to do that. They have not done it. It's been 4 or 5 months since the Dobbs decision. They have not done it. And let's just be real here. They're not going to expand their ranks in the House and Senate in 3 weeks' time. They're going to be in the minority in both houses. Republicans are poised to win back the House and the Senate. Let me just give you one data point that everybody can understand. We all hear about the generic ballot. Would you prefer a Democrat or Republican in these seats? On Election Day in 2020, the generic ballot was a D, Democrat +7. Democrat +7. Today, most of the polls are Republican +4. So that's an 11. And by the way, in 2020, with a D +7, Republicans picked up 14 House seats.
David.
Today, with a R +4, we could be looking at 20 or 30 House seats as a pickup next, in 3 weeks' time.
And David, another point in your piece that we want to call out for the viewers is you talked about Rep. Myra Flores, flipping that seat in South Texas here in the Latino vote. I mean, that 34th congressional district, she's gonna obviously got a very challenge there with some mean things that her opponent has said about her that maybe wouldn't have been said if she wasn't a female, if she wasn't Latina. But I think the Democrats have really misread the border as well and thought that these people would just be okay with all these illegals and criminals and terrorists coming into our country. But people who came here and migrated legally decades ago don't want an open border.
It reminds me of back when Bill Clinton was president. There was a saying in Washington, D.C. Of the way Bill Clinton, was president is, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? Okay. And that's what they're asking the American people. Are you going to believe, me, Joe Biden, or are you going to believe the things you're actually seeing with your own eyes? High gas prices, high inflation across the border, an open border with fentanyl and human trafficking, just as a deluge into this country, a crime spree across this great nation like we've never seen in 40 years. So it's, that's the disconnect. And Joe Biden is not only disconnected, but the entire Democrat Party it's like they are living in a fantasy world. They don't understand. They're disconnected from real Americans' problems, and they're going to pay for that.
Yeah, you talk about the right track, wrong track polling that we've seen, much more, I think, telling than the generic horse race kind of stuff we see now still as well. And I still think there are some examples of Republicans being underpolled. Do you guys know any Republican who is participating in polls? Because I don't. I mean, a lot of people just say they hang up the phone. They got no.
John, let me just say this. There are polls, and I just want to disabuse folks for a second. When you're looking at polling, really look at whether it's a registered voter or likely voter poll. If it is a registered voter poll 3 weeks before an election, it is virtually worthless. It has to be likely voters, and it has to be a large enough sample. The mainstream media loves to
they love to skew their coverage with polls that help tell their narrative. It is confirmation bias in the truest sense of the word. We got to have David back for our Data That Matter and Data That Don't segment to help us break this down more. But we will do that. And, of course, look forward to the next time we have you on, David. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you both.
Enjoyed your piece. Thank you, David.